Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Euro Trade. My name is Mark D. I've been trading for a very long time and mainly specializing in commodities. So things like precious metals, energy markets, and all of that good stuff. I'm looking at this platinum and I'm gonna try a little trade here. Now, I'm generally bullish on platinum from a higher time frame, but right now we are extending the initial balance to the downside and not really coming back to this range from yesterday. So we have a reference low here. So as long as that stays underneath that, generally it means once you've opened below value area like we are today, and extending lower, that's usually bearish. Now platinum and copper are a little bit nuts today, so they've already gone into quite a bit of movement, so we'll see whether that continues or whether it's just some kind of a flush down. But on copper, I didn't like how they whipped it down and whipped it back up in a very unusual way, so let me show you that. So ideally, for any accounts that matter, I want to focus on the times of the day when I know that I do have some high probability trades. So looking at a 15-minute chart. So you see this wick? That's not exactly normal, so that implies either very low liquidity. Yeah, so the spread is pretty horrendous, and because of that, I don't really want to be trading at the times of when you have these gaps. It means there's not that many participants in the market, so therefore I want to remove risk to the accounts that matter, right? But at the same time, I also want to try a few things, see what works, see what doesn't work, and whether it's actually a committed move down or whether they're just basically running through these areas that don't have enough orders. That can happen in the summertime. So because of that, I'm not really that keen on copper until this populates properly. And again, if you look at the dome on copper, it's super patchy. It's like nothing, and then 1, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 4. Like that's so thin. And platinum, the same, right? But the platinum has a pretty smooth move down, so that's why I'm like, okay, well, let's see if we can make something work here. But same thing. It's like for about 3 or 4 prices, there is absolutely nothing. Whenever you see that, be very careful. And, you know, whenever I see that, I go into sort of sim mode until it populates. And then, you know, once you have some more players there, you can find some better setups. But until that happens, you need to remove risk. Why? Because these sort of things can happen. This massive wick that you're seeing on copper, right? So I don't like that personally. I think it's it opens you up to random whipsaws for no good reason. This is why when people go, oh, well, the lower liquidity environment, just increase your size. Yeah, and then get smacked in the face because the participants do that because there's nobody else there. And then it leads to these like exaggerated moves. That was a move of like 70 ticks. Just like that. For no reason whatsoever. Like, oh, brilliant. Yeah, thanks. Can I get some signals this time? Carlos, we're not a signal service, though. You know, I don't know why you would ask for signals from any video on YouTube. You can, you know, you can take the levels and, you know, how we kind of approach the levels, but signals? No. If you notice, Bruno actually posted a risk disclosure before we came on that says this is not a signal service, not financial advice. We are not regulated to give you signals. We can educate, but until I become a CTA, we ain't giving you no signals, man. Yeah, you have so many differing styles as well. You never know what how the other people are trading, right? So even if somebody gives you signal, like let's say I go, hey, go short on copper, right? But then you either overmanage the trade and then you're not in long enough to actually see the strategy work out, or maybe you are holding the trade too long. That can happen too, right? So yeah, careful with signals on the internet, man. Like, I'm really not in favor of that. All right, let's see who's in chat. I didn't sleep that great, so another reason to slow it down today. Zeonix says hello, hello, hello. Tom T3 Metrics, yes. Sandy, Carlos, what is a crime? Stock Pursuit. Jesse Ratkin. Yesterday you said you hate trading oil. It dropped neatly $4 exactly then. Yeah, it does have these like odd days where it goes crazy. What I don't like about it is the inconsistency over the average ranges that you get. So one day you get $4, the other day you get 93 ticks. So you go 400 ticks and then 100 ticks, 100 ticks, 100 ticks, 100 ticks. Then it has another day that it goes like 230 ticks. That's a market that's only moved by headline risk. Whereas before, it was a pretty nice intraday trade, you know. It was the biggest, when I first got funded with Topstep like 10 years ago, it was one of the biggest instruments that everybody was trading, right? 90% of people were trading crude oil then. Now, 90% of people are trading NQ. So, you know. So I just don't like the fact that it only moves when OPEC opens their mouths. And then they're like, oh yeah, well, let's just overreact to whatever they've said. And then nothing. Like, yeah. I don't know what this line is here. So let's delete that. All right, so I'm gonna watch the initial balance flow here. So basically the idea is that we're gonna get to the 1400s, which remains sort of a pivotal area for further movement. I would like to look for longs around 1400 and sub 1400 as well. But until we're there, I'm gonna try and test things out like this. So again, slightly bigger stop because it's moving crazy. Let's see if we can get some sellers to step in. Change this to platinum. Alright, so right now we have candles that are over 100 ticks wide. Platinum doesn't have micros, so whatever you do, you have to roll with the punches on platinum. But yeah, it's very thin as well, so that always leads to exaggerated moves. McGarvey says, good little gold rush this evening outside the Nvidia news. It was next best trade tonight. Do you think crude's coming back up today? I hate being long crude. So any rally that I see in crude oil, I have certain times of the day when I like to fade those. Not in the morning. But yeah, I would probably wait for longs to step in, and then let's see what levels we have on crude oil. We have some puts around 67. Maybe if that lines up with like the initial balance or something, or actually let me see what NYMEX, where NYMEX value is sitting, because this was an Asia trade, and yesterday it fell very nicely, but I think we're gonna have a hangover day today in crude oil. Where is my crude oil? There it is. Okay. So let's see what happens there. Right, initial balance low here for platinum. A little bit of a selling pressure there, but not much. We need that a bit more committal there on platinum. Crude oil. So let's do levels for NYMEX on crude oil. Let's use this chart, recycle. Right, yesterday's NYMEX value low, 66.87. $66.87. Huh, that changed back. There we go. 66.87. There we go. Let's change that to kind of light purple. So this is not London levels now. This is for later on in the day. So NYMEX value low. Okay. NYMEX value high. 68.10. Sizable value, right? But since we have the put supports, which we're under right now at 67, it's quite possible that if we're still in and around this area, that we go up to the value low and 67, so kind of starts testing into it and then rejects it. That will be one hypo. In absence of that, it might actually accept the value area and then rotate somewhat through the value. So that will be a second hypothesis for the long, right? One thing I don't like about that idea is that you're using, or we're using the same level as kind of a line in the sand. That's always a little bit tricky. And because of that, I prefer to stay on a 30-minute chart. And then if it's a value acceptance, I kind of tend to go in pretty late. Just to kind of confirm that they are going into the value acceptance. So I will typically get involved after sort of the second TPO has stayed above the initial balance. Man, they're just jumping through these empty prices. I really don't like that. Because when you don't have anyone in like the span of like 5 to 6 ticks, they will just jump to wherever the liquidity is at the moment, and that's why it's like ew. But yeah, crude oil for me, I would probably try and fade it either from NYMEX value low, or if we go all the way up, then I will wait for like a little bit later in the day and then try and snipe it. But yeah, I hate going long on crude oil. Absolutely despise it. And I mean, if you see the larger time frame, you'll notice why. Let's just focus on this for now. There are times of the year when it kind of haphazardly goes up, but then this was all driven by headline risk, right? When there's headline risk, when there's a reason for it, that's fine. And then you get a day like this. See that? In one single day, it erased 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like literally like the advancement of a full week's worth. It was erased and then some in one day. And that's crude oil for you. So, you're going to be long crude oil, fair enough. But in my experience, every time they run it up, they just smash it back down. And again, they run it up. This was a little bit less violent because this was January. And that's traditionally a quieter period for crude oil. And then we go into the previous year where it was just like range bound, we go up, range bound, range bound, range bound, range bound, we go up, range bound, we sell off, range bound, range bound. And it's like, ugh. So yeah, crude oil and me. I mean, I will short it if there's like a star setup or something, but, and if it's NYMEX at the particular time of the day. Otherwise, no. All right. Now, platinum with like 100 tick moves here, up and down. Is there anything that isn't so thin out of the things that we're trading here, or that I'm trading? Ugh. Gasoline futures, no. Natural gas, okay. Natural gas doesn't look bad. Maybe I can focus on that today. We'll see. Let me have a little look. A little too early for natural gas right now. Right, so it's not done much overnight at all. Today's levels, what do we have? Major reversal potential areas around 340, maybe 330, and then higher up. Might pause at 360, but we still have the core resistance and gamma wall at 375, so that will be pretty interesting to get to. So maybe the price would trade up towards that level. How far it gets today, I don't know, but we'll see. But yeah, right now it's very quiet, so we're just gonna have a look at natural gas for a second. Very, very range bound so far, so they haven't really woken up yet. DAX is moving. That's nice. DAX looking like it wants to extend higher, following, well, I suppose kind of following ES. Any nat gas thoughts? Well, it is the summertime, so you can be in a situation where there's a bit of demand for natural gas. Usually it tends to go up if you have like storms or hurricanes or something. But natural gas really is a product for the afternoon. It's not really a London specific product, because you'll be watching paint dry forever, right? Not the best thing. Right. So is it going to accept initial balance? Is it not going to accept? Come on. We've got 9 minutes until then. And DAX is trying to reject VWAP to the upside and to extend into some kind of a sustained auction. So just for those of you who trade it, because that is something I do trade quite a bit. Yeah, so we open above value, very bullish on the. I said yesterday that the weekly chart kind of looked like a base rally to me. So I wouldn't want to fight that. But yeah, so they touched settlement from yesterday from Euro close. That was during Asia, Tokyo. London never even made it to the Asia low, so that can be a sign of a bullish behavior. And they ran through VWAP, tested the demand that was causing this push up, and now you would expect some follow through. They're creating a poor high, but yeah, that's all looking pretty bullish at the moment. We do have a gap up open in relation to yesterday's value area, but when they don't make an attempt to go there pretty much in the first 2 hours of trading, that can also be a bullish sign. And with DAX being an equity index, that can be a decent play. The only thing that I would caution you against is when we get to my 11 a.m., which is in another sort of hour or so, DAX has a very high probability of pulling back. So if you're looking for shorts, that will be the time. Just don't be super aggressive holding those shorts forever. Whenever I'm short DAX, I'm usually in and out within like 5 minutes. And if it is a short, it tends to be pretty quick. So if it's not happening in the next sort of minute or two since you entered a trade, just bail, because that means the buyers are still around and waiting. But yeah, I would be looking for longs if we could trade that on Topstep at the moment. Slowboy wants to know, how do people read how many people are long or short, or is that just a thing that the Topstep staff can do? So back in the day when you were in the pits and you could actually see the people who were trading, you could see who's buying and who's selling, right? In the electronic times, it's not that easy, because obviously you have the order flow, real-time order flow, rather than the auction theory. So you see orders, and then you have things like bookmap that sort of aim to replace what used to happen in the pits. And yeah, because of that, you can sort of see the velocity of, let's say, bigger buyers, but you really can't exactly tell whether they're initiating new positions or bailing out of the old ones. So that's always a problem in the modern times, right? But yeah, Topstep has its own proprietary data where they collate and aggregate all of the sim traders, and then they put it in the tilt, and then they basically just aggregate that and say, well, how many people are long, how many people are short. But that's not, it's not like groundbreakingly new, because there were tools out there to kind of aggregate the amount of participants that initiated buy orders and sell orders, and then they give you that as well. Not in such a generalized way, but for example, you have platforms that have buy and sell pressure, and then they give you in a single candle, they give you the number of contracts traded on the buy and number of contracts traded on the sell. And in many ways, Footprint is there to do the same thing to a very granular level, if that's what you're looking for. But it's it's like it does help to know, like, for example, I'm not very interested to know what the retail traders are doing. In fact, the way I use tilt is if I'm in a trending position and then I know that there will be people who are trend traders, and the way I do trending positions, I typically tend to enter them relatively early-ish, because I look for mean reversions from areas that either break significant demands, and then you're already in from what is now a new supply, so therefore you tend to be in a better position if the moves really start happening. But with the retail traders, they see a breakout, they're typically late to the breakout, so now they're effectively either shorting in the hole, or whilst the trend is going, they tried fading it at wrong areas and kept trying and kept trying and kept trying. And then they get to a point where they're like, well, that hasn't worked. Let me try and go with the trend. And then you get to a point of the day where it's either the euro close or, you have that, power hour, market on close, like, MOC, something that happens that usually reverses the price intraday. But because they don't know that, it's not like something that they observe, because they trade through their own emotional lens rather than observation of what is actually going on and what times of day. Then they try going with the trend, and then they get run over. And at that point, you will see tilt go from a heavy long or short to 50-50. Now, at that point, I would exit my trending position. So that's one of the ways that I was using it, and I found it pretty useful. The reason why I don't use it now is because they just don't have the tilt data for the products that I trade. There's like so few people trading these. Like, I don't know, maybe my Euro trade has caused more people to look at platinum, look at copper, look at RBOB, and perhaps they have a few people, but they are an American company. We're over here in Europe, and obviously not many people are awake during this time of the day. And until they get like Eurex products, that's probably not going to change. Now, once we get Eurex, there's going to be a lot of Australians and Asian people, and anyone in Australasia. So, anyone who trades at the times of when it's basically nighttime for them. They can't trade the New York products, right? So if you're located in Thailand, or if you're located in, Taiwan or China, we've had some Chinese traders, really good ones. If you're located somewhere in the Gold Coast, in Australia, you can't really, unless you're a night owl and, maybe unemployed or something, I don't know, you just can't stay up, like you have lives to live. So naturally, those traders have gravitated towards Eurex products and London products, because London typically opens up in the evening for them, or in the afternoon, and they can kind of do trading after work. So naturally, they gravitated towards the companies that do offer those products. So that means Topstep is losing out on, a whole bunch of revenue there. So I'm hoping that at some point they will bring Eurex to us. And like I said, I'm patient. I can wait. I've waited a year. I can wait longer. Not a problem at all. But, in the meantime, we have the summertime when it's quite important to pick and choose the times of the day when you're getting involved. And me staring at the same product across 2 different sessions is really not what I used to do. I always have designated products for different parts of the day. So I would have, DAX in the morning. Then I would have that overlap. So I would typically trade copper from 11 to 1. Then I would get to NYMEX or COMEX afternoon session, and then I would choose whether I would maybe trade an energy product like natural gas. And, what's changed for me in the last year is the fact that I've been kind of mixing and matching analyses from different sessions. And I actually spoke to Jerome about that, and I was like, how can I change this? Because I don't really have an option to trade the products that I normally trade at different parts of the day. And again, I'm just being straightforward, just talking to you as a friend to friend. Some of the struggles that I have, being a streamer without the product that I was supposed to trade. during these sessions. And then I went on a huge sort of discovery of, you know, oh, what do I trade? And my main second product used to be gold, right? So I used to trade gold a lot. But I never used to trade it in the morning. That was also the New York session. And then when DAX didn't come, I had to find something. And I found copper. For most of the year, copper is great, right? In London, a bit later in London, right? So it kind of starts to move probably towards, I don't know, maybe in another half an hour's time. You start to get a pretty decent idea of if they're going to do something. But summertime, they've really just gone super quiet, right? So they've gone either like weird low liquidity moves or just like consolidations like this. So this is 30-minute chart. So what have we done since the London Open? Nothing. Like, is it a range? I suppose it's a very whippy range. Can we limit risk here? I don't think so, because, you know, if I go short, I would need to use like a 40 tick stop here. I don't want to do that. If I go long here, I would have to somehow encompass this whole mess of a wick and whipsaw down. So yeah, to me this is just very sucky setup on copper. So I'm gonna wait. Platinum a little bit better, but then because it's so thin, I'm not gonna put any real money behind that. Like, I'm just not, because you know, you see how it's jumping up and down, up and down. They're starting to populate it now, but again, look, here it goes again. Nothing. This is like 1, 2, 3. Like, this like 9, 10 ticks of spread. And what's going to happen? They just jump over that, right? They just jump over that. So that means whatever stop loss you're using, unless you're using like a humongously big stop loss, and there's no micros on platinum. So if you're going to use a 130 tick stop, you know, you have to risk a fair chunk of cash to get involved in that. And, you know, when there's no good way to limit risk, you need to stay out of it or go into either a practice account or a combine that doesn't matter to you. Okay? So remove risk to the accounts that matter to you. And these like jumps over the prices, like little gaps. Oh yeah, we're just gonna gap up. Why? Because nobody's here. So, and then we're gonna wick it back down. And then we're gonna make everybody as miserable as possible, because that's what low liquidity markets do. So yeah. Deeyana, could you go through silver futures? I can. Again, another one of those products. I said that very weird. Products. One of the products that I feel, even on a micro, if silver starts to move, it's gonna rip your face off. GDL is asking T3, have you ever tried the trading PDLL feature? I'm gonna give my 2 cents on that. I don't like the fact that they use your actual daily loss limit for that purpose. I would prefer that we can set our own percentage from the highs. Hopefully that's going to come as an enhanced feature. What was I doing? I lost my train of thought. What was I doing, chat? Oh yeah, silver futures. Yeah, okay. Senior moment there for D. Did we migrate into a U contract? We did. Okay, so I need to just change that. Just need to drag out the new contract. I haven't actually looked at silver since we rolled, so cubics. First and foremost, what do we have on the daily chart for silver? To me, silver and platinum look cleaner than gold does at the moment. But silver could be creating a bit of a range here. It's obviously a pin bar. Thing with pin bars, they can be reversals, but in my experience, just doing some automated trading, they tend to get taken out, or they are more a sign of a new range that's being formed rather than any sort of a good dedicated reversal pattern. I don't know why. I kind of feel like their pivotal pops into interesting areas, maybe from the options activity, and then they bring like a quick inventory adjustment, and then everything stops because it's kind of against the trend. It's like, oh, is this a new trend? Is that? And then everybody gets a bit confused and start to range effectively. So anytime I see a pin bar, I'm always like, okay, this is probably a range, maybe a potential to run a nice pullback long. That's definitely a choice. Thomas, I will answer your question in a minute. Do you want me to answer it in Serbian or in English? That's whichever way I can answer you. Okay. So let me just see what the options are doing on silver. Okay, so we do have kind of a 0 DTE put support level. I mean, we're obviously underneath that, and these are end of day levels from yesterday. That's sitting at 38.75, and then higher up there is the gamma wall at 39. So at the very least, I would expect to see 39 today, or you know, this week. Maybe not today, but this week. And then to the downside, nothing much until we get to 38, really. No meaningful levels. Might pause in and around 38.295 because there's like a whole bunch of things in and around that area. If it starts to go down. Right now it's failing the auction. Looks a bit quiet. Looks very quiet, actually. But it also looks kind of like low liquidity summertime trading. Why? Because we have initial balance, smash, and then another range. That tends to lead more to range-bound market conditions. Obviously, anything can happen, but like right now, there is no initiation on anything. So every time they try to get it up, no pun intended, somebody comes in and just smacks them on their head to go, no, not happening. So yeah, kind of failing the auction at VWAP, but like, look at this price action. And then you're gonna come in up against the little supply that they've made inside. So yeah, I would kind of just wait until this changes. But from the very long time frames, I would think longs are still in play, with a nice possibility of a pullback that we had yesterday, and then maybe use that to run a hypothesis that was just a bit of an inventory adjustment, and now somebody might come in to actually keep buying it. But for now, there's nothing going on. Let's see if the 4-hour chart, maybe volume profile might provide some clues. Right, so yeah, they're building volume from Asia in and around this area. The volume point of control from a 4-hour chart is all the way down near 37. And that's also, so at 38, we have the projected volatility to the downside, which is only here. But obviously this is a thin volume area, so that might actually come to 38 and then they'll be like, okay, let's whip it back up. So be careful of the uptrend on silver. It's really strong. Like if I look at my supply and demand trend indicator, which is something that we created, it doesn't look at zigzag and stuff. It just looks at broken supplies and demands of significant size. So gives you a very good idea whether it's a pullback or whether it's a trend change in one of them, and then I use 3 different time frames to figure out if there's a trend change. The good thing about platinum is that it's still holding just slightly below that initial balance, but again, no initiation there either. So all in all, watching paint dry, thank God we're talking, right? So yeah, silver for now, kind of building volume in a new area. If it goes up from here, that will represent a brand new demand on a 4-hour time frame. At some point intraday, they might actually retest that if you get a proper initiation from that area. But you know, until you see those initiative players pushing it back up, it's just not happening. But yeah, 39 would be kind of the target for intraday longs for me if that starts to happen. But again, be careful with silver unless you have like 100 grand buffer. And for a micro, I would say 40, 50k would be a buffer, because when silver moves, oh my God, it moves. It's just very monstrous, right? So it can be very dangerous. Can you trade gold? I can trade whatever I want, mate. I mean, I just need to pay for it because it's data dependent. But yeah. Read W. I'm trying to pass the 50k combine, but even the micros have too much swings to maintain proper risk control. Any suggestions? So read, what are you trading? That's the first thing. Just love it when people come to me with like partial information. When you're asking a question about a strategy, just please tell me everything, right? What do you trade? What session do you trade? Do you trade the open? What time of day, right? And then, you know, I can go into my the strategist mode, and I can tell you what is likely the problem and what might be a reasonable solution, because that's what I do in my other job, right? I observe the price action and try to find the model that will work for a very particular time of day, not just a level, but a time of day as well. And then we create strategies around it, and then we try and improve on it. You know, that's the overall risk model, not just risk per trade, not just this, not just that, but literally like the overall risk model. Okay, I've been trying, Reed says, I have been trying Euro and US sessions. Okay, so pick one of those. Pick one of those. Which one, Reed, I'm going to ask you, which one do you find that you yourself emotionally can handle a bit better? That's the first question. Bryant, I will get to your question as well. The good news says you're about to hit your stop. Well, lo and behold, I still haven't. So, yeah. Quite frequently, if the market is going to do what I want it to do, it will get quite close to my stop. And that's because these days, especially when I'm in a combine, I'm not really that nitpicky on the sustained auction entries, which is what I'm trying to do on platinum. Why? Because I've missed more of them than not, right? So when there's a sustained auction potential, it's like you either just have to get involved or not get involved. It's like just make a bloody decision, and that means using a slightly bigger stop loss that is somewhat inside that initial balance, just in case they kind of, you know, want to whip it up. And then if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't really care. Like, I really don't care. Why? Because the risk that I use per trade is, you know, sized appropriately. Let's put it that way. You know, I'm not going to risk like 70% of my account on a single trade. Like, Some people do. Okay, let's get back to read. U.S. markets faster, but volume seems safer. Okay, so I would say if you find the U.S. Markets being more committed to committed to the movement that you're looking at, I would say ditch the other session, because the Euro session, unless you're trading DAX, it can be very whippy. It can be, because it's technically an out of hours market, right? We're not actively trading. There are moves sometimes overnight, but that's not the norm. There will always be moves sometimes overnight. It's just how the markets are. But on the whole, like when you look at what's happened in the last 2 weeks, how often do you have trends during London? Not very often, right? It's mostly watching paint dry. And then that one day comes either as a result of a headline risk that, they do something with it. And Londoners kind of go, oh, there's a big move. Okay, let's fade that. And then you get dedicated movement in the opposite direction typically. Other than that, yeah, you will be watching a lot of paint drying otherwise. When we get DAX, we can then talk about DAX. But, right now, it's, it's not here. So a bit pointless to talk about, right? So yeah, limit your activities to the session where you emotionally find it easier. If you find Euro session whippy, ditch the Euro session. Preserve your mental capital for the one session that you want to trade. Like I sometimes do that as well. Even though I have to do these streams every day, sometimes I'm like, no, today I'm just going to focus on one session. And then, I go and sleep. I have a nap in between this and the next session. And then I come back fresh. I can disconnect the two analyses and then just look at each session as a separate entity, which is difficult. Even for me, that's difficult. I prefer to trade completely different products for different sessions. And if you mix and match, then especially if you don't do well in the Euro session, then all of that emotional burden gets carried over into you don't need that. So yeah. Brand, you say you're asking a question. The website says if you take a payout out of your XFA that your loss limit resets to 0. Can you explain that? I have 10,000 and take out 5,000. Do I still have 5,000 loss limit? Yes, but if you're still, let's say you have not gone through the whole trading drawdown finishing yet because you haven't gone over the minimum balance, which means if you're in a 50K, if you're over 2K, that's that means if you want to take 1,000, all that's going to be left in there is going to be that 1,000. Why? Because the trailing stopped. And same thing if you are, let's say you are in a 50K, you generate $1,000, you take out 50% of that. What do you have left? 500, because the maximum loss will reset to 0, right? This is why I say to people, don't, just because you can take 200, 5 days of over 200, that's the bare minimum. They're not necessarily saying, oh, take 500 when you only have $1,000 in there, because you're going to be putting your back against the wall. You might as well just start again. This is you're going to be throwing away $500, right? But Bryant, you're okay because you had 10 grand, so your maximum loss is already at 0, and if you take it out, that's just going to be 5,000, right? So you have 10 grand, you take 5 grand out, you are left with the actual 5 grand. So that doesn't apply to you. Your maximum loss is already at 0. Only people who have not gone through the whole trailing yet, they're the ones who need to think about whether it's a good time to take a payout or not, because it will reset to 0. So just be mindful of that. I mean, in my life, I think I've gone over the 30 days now, so technically I have daily payouts. But it's the summertime, so it's well, like pulling teeth. Do you use Bookmap? Yes, I do. Every day. I like Bookmap. But I first use levels outside of Bookmap. And then once it's at my level, like either put support or initial balance typically or value. So I have like 3 different different things that I look at. So I look at the outer edges of value from the previous day session. I have my quantitative extremes, which is the ADR high, ADR low. And then I have the options levels that I look at, along with the time of day when I expect them to happen. So if they happen outside of that time frame, that is not one of the conditions of the setup. So let's say if I'm looking for a reversal on crude oil, around they put support area at 67, you know, I want that to still be there at like between 9 a.m. Central and 10:30 a.m. Central into the Euro close. If it's outside of that time frame, I don't want it because it's the wrong time of day. So yeah. Jen wants to know, I created an indicator based on my strategy. We'll start testing it in the next few days. What do you think of automated trading? Yeah, well, I've been doing it for many years. Automated trading is awesome. Just make sure that you are basing your algorithms on a single idea at a time. If you, for example, I just mentioned having several levels that I look at. Whenever I get involved in an algorithm, it will be one idea per algorithm. So let's say quantitative extreme, ADR high, some kind of candlestick pattern to make sure we're not getting involved without the price action. And what I do, I typically consolidate the 1 minute chart into whatever I want in the code. And then I will just run that at a particular schedule. So date time, whenever I wanted to start monitoring, and then it runs the piece of code just from that one level. I then have other algorithms that look at outer edges of value, also at a particular time of day, and things like that. I have breakout algorithms that used to run on crude oil perfectly. They don't anymore. Yeah, it used to be sustained auctions on crude oil from the breaks of, not the orb, but from the actual breaks of the initial balance. And then it would have a condition that if the next 30-minute TPO closes back inside it, that will kill the trade automatically. But if it holds above it, it then leaves the trade going until either the take profit or end of the session, whichever one comes first. So yeah, but yeah, don't try and smush several levels into the same algo. That's I learned the hard way that doesn't work, because the algorithm then filters out too many things and gets confused. It's like, are we doing ADR or? And as humans, you know, it's so easy for us to just be so flexible in our thinking and in our sort of I'm starting to boil here. And in our, you know, ability to change between different strategies, which is a good thing and a bad thing, I suppose. But yeah, if you just go into the mechanical trading systems with that idea that it's only going to be one level, one strategy, you're not going to mix and match, then it's pretty exciting, you know. I prefer doing that, just being a quant strategist, switching things on and off than manual trading at this point. Let's go back to platinum here, just as a larger time frame view. So Reed, I just saw that you trade silver, M&Q, MGC. Yeah, silver I would get rid of because it's a monster for especially lower sized combines, even bigger size. I mean, you know, silver starts moving, you're gonna find that you're down $1,000 like in 3 seconds. So MGC is a decent product. M&Q, I don't think M&Q is very good for London, because again, it's an out of hours thing. The good news says, Deeyana, do you have a second job just in case? No, I'm a full-time trader. All of my jobs and all of my businesses at this point are heavily trading related, but I do have a software development company also connected to trading. So we create trading algorithms and indicators, and that's pretty nice. I used to have an IT recruitment company, which didn't work out during COVID. That all went a bit weird. But no, this is my job. So yeah. But yeah, I have 3 businesses effectively. So it's let's put it this way. I have multiple sources of income, but trading comprises a pretty big chunk of that, and all of my jobs are now connected to something related to trading. Does that answer your question? Adult Trader says, do you think algos are trained every day to trap retail traders, make it harder? No, they don't care about us, man. Like, honestly, I spoke about this yesterday. You were probably not here yesterday. Market makers are not there to hunt your stops. Market makers are there to maintain a delta neutral in a market neutral position at all times, to make sure that they provide liquidity for the rest of us. If you have no market makers, we would have so there's not many market makers today in Platinum. Why? Because we have these massive holes and gaps in the dome. That means nobody's market making. This is all just singular people either awake at night and going, oh, I'm gonna place 1 Platinum. I'm gonna place 3 over here. So this is not market makers. This is just retail, But market makers do not train. First of all, they don't trade algos every day. That would be over optimizing for the time of day. Second of all, retail traders, even I know where your bloody stops are. Okay? I don't need to see it. I know where you're going to put them. Why? Because I've seen it many times. Like, I've been coaching people as well for like 7 years. And the first thing that they do, like, let's say this particular trade. So people will be going, well, I'm going to go short here, and then I'm going to place my stop at 415. Why? Because in your head, it's like, oh, it's such a nice round number, right? 415, great area to place a stop. But look at where my stop is, 16.6. It's a bullshit number for excuse my language, for a reason. By the way, I am going to be doing my own live stream later on. I'm a lot more profane there, so I'm kind of finding it a bit difficult not to swear. So yeah, if I kind of drop a few words and F-bombs here and there, don't hold it against me. But yeah, so basically people will be placing their stops at very, very obvious prices, round numbers being one of them. So when I'm getting involved, even if I'm getting involved away from so this trade, I would say it's a trade between 10 and 15, right? But my entry was above 10. So to account for the fact that we've gone over the round number. And then I've placed my stop not at 15, but I placed it at 16.7. And ideally, I would like to place it at 17, but it was a little bit too much risk. And there was a high there. So I figured, well, if it gets stopped out, it gets stopped out. But some people, once we get to 1400, they're going to aim to wait for 1400 to react, and then they will place their stop around 1400 or just underneath it, like 99.7. That's going to get hunted. Why? Because that's what they do. Because they know that a lot of retail traders are not skilled enough, and they don't even think about that. So I hate putting my stops and my entries dead around the round numbers. So if I'm looking for shorts, I'm going to around 1410, which is the case here. I will aim to get my entry above that number. If I'm looking for longs at 1400, if they give me the opportunity, I'm going to aim to enter just below it or in and around sort of 401. But if it moves away from that, it means that I can't then place my stop somewhere at 97 or 96. But maybe even 95. So it depends on where I get that. But basically, that is the idea behind why you think algos are hunting you. It's like they don't give a monkeys about you, man. Like, literally, they don't even know we exist, especially not in your, simulated combine. Like, let's get real for a second. Most of your trading sim accounts, it's like, what do you think? How much effect do you think you're having on the real market? Nothing, zero, right? and you're here sitting going, oh yeah, they're hunting my stop. What, you simulated stop when you have XFA? Yeah, I bet that's something that the dude at Goldman's is really worried about. So yeah, they don't know we exist. Even I, when I traded, much larger, it was like minuscule. Well, not that minuscule, I suppose, but depends on what you're trading. And yes, when you're trading like 40 lots, you're still, just whatever. But if you're, when I was trading crude oil for prop, that was big. So I would be having positions of up to 120 lots. So, and that was a tough thing, man, because executing 120 lots in crude oil, even then, it was difficult. You have to partial the position. So forget about this sniping thing. You always have to work in and around the zone. You just can't trade like one click and then you're in, because it's a 120 lot position. So you're like, okay, so now I'm going to do 5 here. Then I'm going to do, another 5 at a different level inside the zone. Oh, now it's moved away. Okay, well, now I have to either wait or just be stuck with a tiny portion of a position. Like, it skews everything. It skews the risk model. It really changes the way you look at executions. So forget about you kind of entering on one click. It's this whole working around the zone, and you have to have a larger zone to work with. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So yeah. So, different style of trading completely. Well, not completely, but, you have to, like, keep adding to positions and then have certain points where you're going to add to keep it a little bit more systematic to fill the entire position. So, it's not that easy. Roy Everett says, F-bomb to your heart's content. Yeah, on my stream later today. Yeah. NM14 says, hi D, looks like you shifted to new places. Isn't this one spacious? So this is just one room. I picked one of the spare rooms for my studio. I'm not going to have a studio in my living room, am I? I am going to do a tour. I'm waiting for my new sofas to arrive in August to just kind of complete the look of the house. I know many people have been asking for a tour. I will give one. So yeah, just keep your eyes peeled. Like, my living room has 6 bifold doors, so it's pretty spacious. And then we have effectively 4 bedrooms and 3.5 bathrooms and a pretty sizable kitchen. So yeah, it's pretty nice. And a big garden out the back. There's a farm, not mine, but there is a farm. And the garden is just like 1/2 acres in and around the house, roughly. So yeah, it is a bigger place. If you notice, my old place had the wall like literally just behind me, and this one, it's got quite some space behind it, right? I mean, I don't know how much you can see, how much space there is, but yeah. Sandy is asking me if opportunity arose, would you try trading in the pit? No, because as you know, Sandy, we're very little people. And if you've met anyone who's worked in the pits, they're all very tall with very big voices. So I would need stilts and a megaphone to make that work. So no, I think if I had to trade in the pits, I probably wouldn't be a trader today. And I've met so many, even women who said that trading in the pit was disgusting. It's like people like spit in your hair, and it's just not really a very nice place. So no, I would not, I would not be trading in the pits. As you know, also, Sandy, I'm a little bit terrified of crowds because of what happened when I was 4 years old. So crowds that's the reason why I chose to be a musician on stage, to be away from crowds. And funny story, so my dad was our dad, that's Sandy, my sister who asked that, he was very famous when I was very young. And when I was 4 years old, he kind of got accosted by a number of fans outside of this this concert hall where they were preparing to do a concert, and I was only 4. I was very tiny, and suddenly I was being trampled by a whole bunch of people who were pulling my dad, and they were like wanting autographs and whatever. That effing scarred me for life, right? So this is why anything relating to like crowds and stuff, I'm absolutely terrified. And yes, I played in clubs, but I was always either in, backstage getting ready, or at the musician's table or on stage, right? So no, I would not try pit trading. Maybe LME pit trading, because London Metal Exchange is actually quite civilized. So that could have been an option, I suppose, that you just sit in a circle. Nobody's allowed to stand up when they're actively trading, so it's not like the US exchanges. Well, actually, Life Exchange was a lot like the US exchanges over in London, so yeah. But the LME, very, very civilized. You sit down in a circle, you just go in, do your signals. Maybe that, yeah, but not the traditional pits. No thanks. How similar is it to Bill Gates' house? I have no idea. I have never been to Bill Gates' house, nor do I know what his house looks like. So yeah. What's your dad's name? So my dad was in a band called, they were a parody folk rock band from the 70s and 80s, and they were called Rockers from Morava, Rockeri z Moravu. They basically made fun of, and his, I suppose his stage name was, translated Barney the Blind, because he wore like spectacles, and they kind of had derogatory sort of nicknames for every single frontman of the band, and they did like comedy skits in between funny songs. They were making fun of the southern parts of the Serbia, of like sort of like the rednecks of Serbia, so to speak. So yeah. All right, so this platinum has gotten stuck in a range as well, and it's annoying the hell out of me. So I'm going to close this because I can't be bothered with it anymore. It's just literally just chopping in a range, neither accepting the initial balance nor going into sustained auction. Going into Combine was definitely the right decision today, just to test the waters to make sure that it's not, just kind of rolling into a trend. It's not, so we're going to wait for the COMEX session for the... for some more commitment to a particular direction before I trade my live account. Okay, Trader Eyes says, I have multiple strategies, win rate above 65, but if I combine them in one account, the win rate drops to 34, hard to fix it. Keep them separate. Don't keep them all running all in the same time. So I'm assuming the different strategies account for the different market states. I don't run all of my strategies, so one of my jobs is to switch them on and off as and when the market state calls for it. So obviously I'm not going to be doing breakout trading to the upside on crude oil on most days, because it's just mainly a range-bound market, right? When that changes, maybe I'll switch it back on. But for now, it's only looking at the day range fill, like towards the end of the day, and then fading longs into a short. All the others are switched off for crude oil. So then if we have, and speaking of crude oil, it's just turning around from that 67 area. And because we're in a combine, I mean, maybe we can try a little trade here. Why? Because 67 is the area that I was looking for. Later, it's not the right time of day, but they've kind of rejected away from it. And yeah, just looking for like a little 30 tick flush here. Nothing major. But again, it's London, so don't expect miracles. I'm messing around because I'm in a combine, so I'm doing slightly more grasshopper trades. Oh, actually, hold on. Grasshopper trades require the grasshopper hat. We're jumping in and out of trades. We have to have a grasshopper hat. What does that look like? Probably terrible. Let's see. Big eyes. There you go, big eyes. There we go. Deeping a grasshopper. Boing, boing, boing. There we go. Boing, boing. In and out of trades, in and out of trades, in and out of trades. I'm gonna put my hair down because it's squeezing me. Ow. Okay. There we go. Boing, boing. Faithful Ugoji says, I can't seem to find profitability in indices. What asset class would you recommend? I would recommend looking at metals. So I love training people on copper because it's slower. But micro gold is also a decent choice, right? So you can, maybe look at the metals, right? Maybe look at the metals. Yeah, come on, guys. Give me a thumbs up for the grasshopper hat, right? Boing, boing, boing. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Apparently my husband was watching it and he said that the aircon flap is open and it's really annoying him, so that's nice to know. He was actually the one who crawled in yesterday to close it. So yeah. Are you familiar with Edgefall? If yes, what reports are your favorite? So here's the thing. Yes, I am familiar with Edgefall. I think it's a good service, but here's the thing. I did a lot of the stats myself over the years, so I know what I'm looking for. I actually asked Andre to add a couple of things, and he did add it, but then they did the new website and I can't find them anymore. It was the TPO gap close by value and by session. So that's what I look for, and that's the stats that I already have, but they removed it, so I was like, oh great. So I haven't really been using it that much, I'll be very honest. Primarily because I've done my own studies and stats, not in a pretty sort of graphical representation like they did, but yeah, it's a useful strategy. It's a useful service to have if you've never done stats before, because it will actually give you actual behaviors over a 6 month, a year, 3 years, 5 year period, so you can actually look at my antennas go. So you can actually have a look at what actually happens. You know, how many times does, let's say, copper extend the initial balance to both sides during London? That's a useful stat, right? How many times do you get gap fills to the downside versus gap fills to the upside in equities? You will find not many, right? What is the size of the gap that will most likely fill but still offer you a good profit margin? You know, usually not something that is opening right like 2 ticks above the gap, right? You need to have a sizable gap. But then if it's too big of a gap, if the gap is like over 1%, what happens then? Oh, the gap doesn't close by 90%. Knowing those things is actually quite useful. So yeah, I like Edgefall. Do I stare at it every day like Baron? No. But why? Because I've done my own stats and I have some of my own measures that are not in there. You know, I have average session range. I also have, things like connecting it to the time of day, which to a degree some of their reports do. But yeah. What are your MACD settings on? I don't use MACD, so I have no settings on it. Five Panda says, my dad was an ass hopper. I'm very glad for him. Hope he had fun. Thomas Swinton had a thing here a while back. Hold on, let me see. Gold break or fake out. I don't like trading gold for this time of the day. I will be honest. Asia is good if you're awake, but yeah. Did I miss anyone's question? Pi says, Yodi, was there news behind that overnight NQ long? I only see Chinese data. Well, depending on what the Chinese data was, that can actually kick up indices into some sort of a trend, whether down or up, depends on the numbers. So were the numbers bad? Because everybody's looking at China right now, you know, there's going to be a lot of focus on what they do because of tariffs and all that nonsense. Come on, crude oil, like literally, it's so slow today. Like, I suppose they're waiting for CPI or something across the board. Boring. Which volume indicator is that on the right with blue and yellow horizontal bars? That's called the volume profile visible range. And it's kind of a volume vertical histogram. So kind of similar to what you see here, but it's a histogram, vertical, and then it also has the VPOC, volume point of control, which is kind of the middle of the middle, like the fuzzy of the fuzzy. So usually prices can revert to the point of control if it's a larger time frame, but on a lower time frames, I kind of use them as a directional indicator in a trend. So if we're going up, I expect the volume point of control to keep moving up. When it starts to slow down and it just doesn't move for several candles, it's usually a sign to bail. So yeah. Have you tried listening to AI songs? God, no. I'm a former musician, absolutely horrified by AI music. Horrified. It's all just like, and they're like words that make absolutely zero sense. And they try to smush the words without following the metrics of the actual lyric rhythm. And it annoys the hell out of me. Like, today I went to do the flowers, but then I also went to the kitchen. It's like, really? And there's always something off about it. Like, you can tell it's not written by a human. When you're writing lyrics, you have to make sure that the lyrics are like singable, if that makes sense. Like there's certain words that sing better. I don't know how to explain it, but you know, when you're writing, you need to pick your words that will flow better together, and AI music doesn't do that, so I hate that. NM14 says, yeah, the margins are up, and as always, the ground is slow. How do you deal with mindset during the slow period? I always lose honestly, I bloody lose patience as well. I don't like this much slowness, because this is look, slow directional I'm all for, right? That's what I aim for. Whenever it starts doing this, like you've seen me, I enter one trade, does nothing, chop, that's when that's one of my mental triggers, like for sure. And that's why sometimes I'm just like, oh man, just the London session is just like, ugh, because I don't have DAX, right? So DAX really moves quite committedly for the London session. You can always find something to trade, but then all of the other products that are based on like NYMEX, COMEX, CME, I don't know what it is, but the Londoners are just like, yeah man, we're just gonna trade FTSE and DAX and Bund, and we don't care about the rest of it. So the movement for the first 2 hours of London, you can see it. It's just so meh. And, you know, how do I deal with it? Not very well, if I'm going to be honest. Like, not very well. It does my head in. It honestly does on some days. Especially like today, I haven't slept well. Yesterday, one of my dogs was throwing up. So I was like, oh, God, what's wrong with you, dude? And he's an older dude, so obviously I get very worried. And then I didn't sleep well. Then some of my other dogs woke me up halfway through the night to go outside. So I was like, fuck's sake. So I woke up very grumpy today. So I thought to myself, I ain't trading the live because I feel grumpy. Therefore, we're going to go into a combine. And then the markets did very little. It just chopped in a range. So yeah, now we're going to wait for COMEX, and that's fine, because now I can just go, okay, that was just a combine. I got my clicks out of me, you know, I clicked a few times, put on the grasshopper hat, got it out of my system. So that's how I deal with it. You know, if I feel like I'm underperforming, I will go into combines, remove risk, and then just do all of the silly, stupid trades and clicking buttons that you can possibly do. For me, it has to be something that I paid some money for, so it can't be just a practice account because it doesn't work the same way. So, you know, pay a bit of money, just spend a bit of cash being a Muppet, get it out of your system, just go nuts, and then just go, phew, okay, now I'm ready to do serious business. Yeah. And then you go back to your strict risk control and, yeah, because it does my head in. It does. It really does. I hate markets that are in range. I like the range-bound markets that have a good range to them, but not the markets that, for example, right now, I went into trade, how long? 2, 4, 6, 8, like 10 minutes I've been watching this. It moved 3 ticks in my favor. It's like, wow, what a move. What a move. And, you know, scalping, the older I get, the less I'm inclined to do it. So I just want to pick and choose the battles, you know, pick and choose swing trades. And then every so often you'll be like, oh yeah, let's do some clicking. let's click buttons. Not very often though. Like it is a way to get certain things out of your system, just to go nuts on one of the combines and blow up a bit. Or even not blow up, like, you know, just kind of enter like 1 lot, 2 lots, 3 lots. But don't go, like, I feel that if I'm really letting that side of me go nuts and just like going in with 10 lots, 15 lots, that's not very good for me. So I keep it to about 3 or 4 contracts, and then I will still try to just go with the flow. So my idea of going nuts is not literally just clicking buttons, but it's still like, okay, so what's happening here? Let me try and see, maybe, you know, maybe they want to go long. If this breaks this high, then I might change the direction and just kind of be a little bit more fluid. So it's almost like an exercise in situational fluency, but it's not like just clicking buttons mindlessly for the sake of clicking buttons, if that makes sense. So even when I'm a grasshopper, you know, there's still some sort of a background to it. Like, for example, if I was looking for anything right now, let's see if copper is woken up. No, so that's not a good thing. I mean, crude oil, I suppose, is woken up. So now it needs to break this low here. We're still underneath the 9 EMA on a 2-minute chart, so I suppose that's okay. Is platinum still pushing? Nah. Is it? I don't know. It pushed up already. So yeah, I would be a little bit more dynamic. There's nothing to be dynamic about at the moment. Because, you know, crude oil rejecting the 67 seems to be having some follow through around that NYMEX value low from yesterday. You know, and then if I was seeing a little bit more commitment and volume and everything coming in, maybe I would have increased size in the combine just to like kind of add on the way down to this nearest swing low. I mean, now we're kind of getting a little bit, but this is not, it's still very patchy, right? It's not all sells, but the price seems to be reacting better to the sells than it is to buys. But basically the whole point of clicking more buttons is to try and follow the flow, kind of like a reversal challenge but with stops, if that makes sense. So you're not always in a trade, you are trying to come up with a good setup and then just follow the microstructure wherever it leads you. But I don't like doing that. It's like, if you're doing that with some real size, and your fine executions are just an absolute nightmare. So, you know, over the years, I've learned that if you're trading with size, you need to have a zone, you need to have a direction. Don't mess around with, you know, mixing and matching the two. Trader Cam, what did I miss? I had to step away. I thought I had a bug on my screen. Yeah, here's the bug. Boing! Yeah, I put on my grasshopper hat because I jumped from platinum to crude oil, was looking at copper, was looking at gold, and then I did, you know, about 2 or 3 trades already in the space of these 90 minutes. And that's a grasshopper, right? That's grasshopper time. It's a combine, so it's fine, but I always like to be a little bit whimsical about it and just go, okay, we're hopping around, let's put a grasshopper hat. So yeah. T3 metrics, AD, what percentage of profits are you willing to give back before you call it a day? I tend to want more and more and more even after a great day. So if I get to, it really depends. Like if I've had a decent week, I will open up my daily loss limit to almost the full 3 grand that they've given us. If I'm having a week where it's like, it's okay, then I will sort of keep it to like 1100 to 1500. If I start a new month, I would try and keep my daily loss limit at only 775 to make sure I'm not putting a massive dent. But basically, it's not a percentage based. To me, daily loss limit is fluid depending on whether I'm doing well or not, and then I'm kind of allowing myself more rope to hang myself with, or more daily loss limit when I do well, and I try and tighten it up if I notice that I'm starting to slip. And it's always the thing, it's like you're doing well, then you're not doing that well, then you're doing well, and you have to keep tabs on yourself at all times. Otherwise, it's like it's not a static percentage amount for me, and it cannot be. When you put in the payouts, so it's like, well, now you have a smaller balance. So it's like, now what? Do I go back to 1? And like a very tight daily loss, or do I just try, 1 trade on a couple or 3 lots and then see how that goes, and then if I get smacked in the face, then I lock it down. Like, so to me, it's for prop firms especially, it's like dependent on effectively the previous week's performance, if that makes sense. For my own personal accounts, I do have a set loss limit, and that's on one of them, which is kind of my YOLO account, is 6% per day, so it's pretty aggressive. That's why I call it my YOLO account. But on some of the bigger ones, it's like more like swing trading, so that's like a couple trades per week maybe. That needs like a monthly loss limit maybe. But I don't feel like I need any sort of a loss limit on swing accounts. At least I don't. So yeah. If you're up 1500 on the day, you won't risk like 200. No, I won't. If that's so here's the thing, Tom. I work on the number of trades per day. If I've already gotten to like 5 trades by the time I'm up 1500, that is it for me. And sometimes if I sniped 1 swing trade and I got 2.5 grand for it, that'll be the only trade that I do. I'm not one of those people that's like, I need to get more. I'm just going to try another. No, I'm perfectly happy to walk away with whatever the day gives me. And I think over time, I've just learned to not have any expectations coming into the day. And then whatever they present to me, I'll take. Does that make sense? And if it's a loss, it is a loss. I also don't go, boo. It's just, it's not happening today. It's fine. So yeah, maybe, I don't know how many trades you do per day, but maybe find like an average number that you do on a winning day, and then lock it up with that. Like just make that your trade limit. And then it's going to stop you, whatever happens. It's a good way it's a better way than monetary way. I know that some people are like against the, oh yeah, I'm always like monetary. It's like, really? Oh, it doesn't bother me. And then you find out that it does bother them, and they're actually in drawdown. And you're like, well, it clearly bothers you, so you need to find a different way to control that. And to me, that was the number of trades per day. It's scalable, right? And it stops me from going completely crazy, chasing a particular number. So yeah, whatever happens in those 5 trades, that is my day, and I walk away after that. And 5 trades across several different products, right? So if I've sniped one in copper, I got like 300 ticks out of it, I don't need to trade anymore. I made my money, right? I've done my job. But if the day is difficult, like summertime tends to be more difficult, so I do trade more. And then, the first trade loses, second trade partially loses, and you're like, it's going to be like annoying. But then you go and have a break. I like to walk outside in the garden. You go touch a tree. I have 3 mature oak trees. I've named them all. so yeah, I go and sit outside for a bit, breathe some fresh air, clear my head, maybe do a yoga nidra session just to kind of clear my head out of everything, and do the non-rest sleep. And then I come back and then I go, okay, copper didn't work today. Let's have a look at something else. What's the time of day? Oh, time for natural gas. What's natural gas doing? So then I will try to find one trade in natural gas. If I don't find a trade there, I will look at gold. And then if I can't find any trades for the euro close, I will actually have another break for the what I call the day range fill time. And that's literally like the last 90 minutes of any session. So whether that's, COMEX, NYMEX, or New York Stock Exchange, it depends on the product that I'm trading. But generally that would be like, again, looking for a good setup for that time of day. So it's like very much like day trading time zones, and that's what I call them. And I have expectations for each and every part of that, of the day, if that makes sense. So, yeah. Okay. So Tom says the problem is my number for the day knows no limit. Make 500 on 1K. Yeah, I would aim to change that. I would quality over quantity has always been my, like, who wants to work more, right? Like, I don't know. I'm one of those people who's like, the less I can work, then the more cash I can make. That really speaks to me. As someone who's worked really hard for everything in my life, I've come to a point in my almost 45 years of age where I'm just like, let's just do one trade, If that works out, let's go and put my feet up, spend time with the dogs. I don't know. When I was younger, I had the same thing. I was like, more trades, and let's do more trades, more money. But then you get to a point and you're like, what am I chasing right now? So yeah, now I'm a lot more chill than I used to be. Especially in my 30s, I used to be a bit crazy. So yeah. Like back in the day whenever I was starting a new eval, it was like 3 lots or die. Like that was it. And now I'm like, yeah, let's start with micros. Your risk averseness changes the older you get. I suppose the life kind of teaches you, especially the markets teach you some humility. And to me, it's all about, like, I've got to a point where it really makes no difference what I'm trading. Although that's not strictly true. Okay, I will be honest. When I'm in my live accounts, I do think that if I trade too small and then I make like 200, I will push for more. So that's my problem. But then the way I sort that out is to move everything into ticks and then just only work, like, let's say if I make 200 ticks on the day, whatever monetary side that is also my target. So more like ticks based, number of trades based, and so I have different like stopping points that will tell me that it's time to end the day, whether up or down, it doesn't really matter. So yeah. Rect says, I'm one of those idiots. Don't call yourself an idiot, man. No, you're learning. You're learning. You're not an idiot. You are learning. And remove my stop to blow the XFA. Second time this happened in my XFA. I'm pulling the PDLL trading tool now. I'm trying the PDLL trading tool. Yeah. How big is my garden? Only half an acre. So not a huge amount, but enough to make it a bit of a chore on the day. I don't do that. We do have somebody who comes and mows the grass. And my husband just bought a lawnmower, so I suppose he's going to be doing that. I don't know. He's semi-retired at this point, so, he can do that stuff. Trader Cat, I tried Grasshopper and got hurt on gold and gas, so I came back to my turf. Yeah. I'm more a quick draw McGraw on NQ. Yeah, so NQ, that's how you have to trade NQ. I mean, I think swing trading NQ is like for I don't know who can do that. Even I'm more on the side if you trade NQ, just like in and out. Like I've never really held NQ trades for swing. It's like insane. So I'm just waiting to see what this crude oil trade does, because that 67 has worked out pretty nicely. But it's only 32 ticks. Come on. It's like so annoying. Like you sit in a trade for, what, an hour? An hour? Half an hour. And it's only moved like 30 ticks. Like, yay. Slow clap, crude. It's brilliant. Why not move your stop now? Because I have 18 years of telling me that whenever I moved my stop, it hit my break even and then carried on without me. So I stopped. About 10 years ago, I stopped moving my stops. I work off of tested probabilities and size of the stops that are able to withstand the kind of moves that I'm looking for. And then also the kind of areas that I get involved with. Like this is the 67 is put support. Was put support. NYMEX value low from yesterday is a very strong area, and usually when we stick away from it, they can test it. They can test it, but once it's moved away from it, it's a fairly decent chance that this is going to go to at least 50 ticks profit. So moving my stop bears no. First of all, I don't trade a million trades. Second of all, my trades are mostly intraday semi-swings where I look for bigger chunks of the move. Moving stops means that you're not, either you don't have confidence in what you're doing, or you haven't tested it probabilistically, or you're afraid that, you know, it's going to, again, it goes back to confidence, doesn't it? So yeah. I never move my stops. I will sometimes put a partial stop, like if I'm in with 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, like I will move half of the position, maybe there, but I am more in favor of taking partials to control the risk once the trade gets to 2R, not before. So I either take profit, or if I'm going to hold it longer, I will clip half, and then I will see whether I can squeeze out a little bit more out of it. But moving stops to break even, the biggest nonsense I've ever heard in my life if you're a swing trader. If you're a scalper, yeah, I can see that you want to, you know, you're quick in and out, and you got a quick pump in your favor, or a quick dump in your favor. So, you know, effectively you want to protect that because there's no time to do anything else, and you're protecting that. I don't trade like that. In case you haven't noticed, most of my trades last a pretty solid long time, right? And right now what's happening here is that on this very low time frame, we have the 9 EMA that's trying to cross the VWAP. That could be a momentum indicator. That can be a sign that this is going to go into yet another short. I mean, it fell overnight quite a lot, but we're coming into a time of day where they start to mess around, and, you know, that 11 to 1 is when I trade copper, so I might go and have a look at it. How would you recommend improving on taking profits too early? So there is this thing, set your profit target to 2R, nothing crazy, 2R, and then, no, that's not what I want. And then there's this button here that says, is that it? No, that's not it. So there is a place somewhere where you can lock yourself out for a particular time. Trade clock. There it is. Right. So enabling the trade clock restricts entering new orders and adjustments to existing orders and positions. Only flatten all and cancel will be available under the restriction. So I would just literally, so I call that approach whenever one of my students is struggling with that, the do or die approach. Stop loss or take profits. You're not allowed to touch it, right? You can even set it to like 1.5 hour just to see what will happen. So you're aiming for a proof of concept. This is not like, oh yeah, this is how we trade XFAs. No. You're aiming for proof of concept. What will happen? Let's find out what will happen if you leave it alone. And then you do that for a week. After a week, you go and journal and you go, oh, I've made more money than ever before, which is what you usually find. So you then have to swallow the uncomfortable truth that you've been over managing your trades by doing stupid shit, respectfully. And then your mindset starts to change. And then you go, okay, well, how can I do this? How can I do that? And yeah. So one of the ways that you can control yourself is the trade clock. Another one is just to forget that the position exists. So you just basically take it away and you're like, I'm going to commit to it. I'm not going to touch it. And then go find a hobby and move yourself away from your trading desk, your phone, your laptop, whatever you trade on for the rest of the day. And then come back and see what happens. Don't sit there and watch it, because that's going to bring the... definitely is going to bring your mind to a point where you're like, oh, I have to take it. I have to take it. So you want to train yourself not to do that. Right, trying a long here because all of these longs have stepped in. I see them on Bookmap as well. But is it going to be enough to go back to value? We don't know. Oh, look at what the time is. One more question and then I'm out of here. Kieran, you may have spoken about this, but so do you consider supply and demand as a part of technical analysis? Yeah, I start my supply and demand every Sunday. I look at weekly, monthly, daily chart, 4-hour chart, and then throughout the week, I will start with looking at 4-hour and daily supply and demand. I don't do it often here. I do it on Mondays. So if you were here yesterday, I was kind of talking about the larger time frame picture. I think if I were to start every single session with that, it would be a bit boring. It's like, oh, let's have a look at the 4-hour and daily. It's like, why? So I kind of focus more on what I'm finding intraday and, what sort of levels intraday we may have for the rest of the day, and which points might be quite relevant. And if you go back through the streams, whenever I say, oh, gold, I'm looking at this particular number, you will see that they generally happen to be pretty accurate, but they happen later in the day, right? Because it's a different, more active session, obviously. So for example, today on gold, 33.80 to the upside is definitely a level that can be a line in the sand. More often than not, gamma walls will bring a reversal. So maybe some slowdown and a potential reversal. But then again, there's the flip side. If the market makers decide that they need to buy more gold because everybody went short yesterday, maybe they will act as an accelerator. However, that is your line in the sand. And then to the downside, we do have 33.45 as kind of like the edge where I would expect to see some sort of reversal happening intraday. But that's not going to be a London session. That's going to be much later in the day, right? Grasshopper. All right, let's finish this grasshoppering session. And Kieran, just be careful of the 30. I've just seen your comment. I do it on a 30-minute time frame generally, especially on MGC. They seem to be quite directional and trendy. Yes, in a directional market, the supplies and demands in the direction of the trend will be very reactive. So that would work. But as soon as that trend starts to wane, you will get a lot of run-throughs. So I actually look at anything lower than a 4-hour chart as game for a liquidity grab. So you have for example, you have this supply on platinum. I'm expecting this to be stop run because it was made during Asia. And even though it's a 30-minute supply, that still doesn't mean that it's going to work. In fact, I would expect it to be smashed through and then reverse. That's actually one of the setups that I look for on DAX quite frequently. Smash through the relevant highs and lows from the previous session and reverse. All right, we're going to finish it up here, and I'm going to go rest for a few hours. Yeah, so let's see what CPI brings. You know, it's a decently big release, and copper does react to that, so I'm probably going to wait until we Drew, yes, but releases, right? I'm not like, oh, you trade copper 11 to 1. I do. I also trade it after 3 p.m. as well. So, but whenever you have a release, I have to wait for that. We have core CPI happening. That's a big, big thing for copper. Copper very, very responsive to CPI. So when you have a big release, what am I supposed to like do like a whole bunch of silly trades before we know the number? Well, yes, but not on copper. So we've done them on a combine. Yay. Just to get that out of our system. But yeah, so we'll see what CPI brings. It's very likely that copper might have some pretty violent moves. So don't be going trading copper with an open position into the CPI. That's like, don't do that. Be a pro. You know, be a pro. Close out your positions. Look for your setups. Wait for 4 minutes. Like 4 minutes. That's all I ask of you. Just 4 minutes after CPI, knock yourself out, right? Anyways, we're going to finish it up here. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'm going to be on Lunchbox Trading later on today, and I'm going to be live streaming on my own channel around 3 p.m. or maybe 4 p.m. my time. I don't know. I still have to decide. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled. In the meantime, I wish you a great day. See you later. I'm Deeyana Angelo, aka Market Stalker D. This has been the Eurotrade on TopstepTV. Goodbye.